And now it's time to say a very good afternoon to Andrew Allison. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Mike. You?
Yeah, very well indeed. Slightly puzzled, really, by the sort of mixed messages that we're seeing and the mixed messages that we're getting all the time. You know, first of all, we get told that definitely it's all going to happen on July the 19th. Then we get sort of leaked stories saying vaccine passports might be a thing. Other ministers in the past have said they won't be a thing. We see Patrick Vallance at Wimbledon at the weekend, despite the fact that Chris Whitty says if you're in a crowded place, you should wear a mask. Nobody's wearing one. And I've had people saying to me, yeah, but it's an outdoor event. No, the point is they made it very clear when they first made the pronouncement about masks. Yes, take them off, but we would recommend that you keep wearing them in certain situations. And surely Wimbledon Centre Court would be one of them.
Yeah, you would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But it's one rule for them and one rule for the rest of us. And we saw that at the G7 summit, didn't
Yes.
we, in Cornwall?
Well, not just to that,
all...
but we can now add Wimbledon to that. You can add the football to it as well. I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This has always been my biggest fear, Mike. That Freedom Day would not be Freedom Day, that restrictions would be in place. I mean, the government is saying you're not forced by law to wear a mask, but we recommend that you wear a mask. And as you said, all these different businesses are coming up with different rules and regulations. So you can walk into Sainsbury's without a mask, but will you be able to walk into Morrison's or Asda or Tesco without one? Nobody really knows. The whole thing's a mess.
Well, that's the trouble. And I fear as well that because of all these kind of zealots who think that we're all killing everyone if we're not wearing a mask, there will be situations where perhaps civil unrest will emerge and occur at various points. Because if you say, for example, you're going to get on a bus and they say to you, you must wear a mask to get on the bus, and you say, well, I don't want to. I mean, can they stop you getting on the bus just because they've made a recommendation? It's not a law.
It's not a law, so you think that you probably could get on the bus, but I don't know. It depends what the different rules and regulations are for each individual company. And, the whole point of Freedom Day was that all these rules and regulations had gone.
Yeah.
That we're free to live our lives again. That's the whole point of the vaccination program. I mean, we were told right at the end of last year, just before Christmas, just bear with us. All we need to do is to jab the elderly and those who are most clinically vulnerable, and things will be good. And it's been delay after delay. The reopening has been at a snail's pace, and those scientists who come on various radio stations and television channels saying that we're rushing this, it's all too quick. Well, Boris announced this roadmap back in February, 5 months ago. So it's certainly not being rushed. But we're going to have to wait and see. But I certainly will not show any proof of the vaccinations that I've had to enter a pub or a restaurant. I'm just not going to do it.
No, I'm with you. I will not do that. And also, I've seen at the weekend there's a couple of organisations, chain of pubs called, I think it's City Pubs, who are saying that they're going to require masks to be worn while you enter the premises and go to a table. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not coming. Similarly with, I think it's Gaucho restaurants owned by Rare Group. They're saying they're going to keep those rules in place. I'm not going there either.
But it's stupid, though, Mike, isn't it? It's as if COVID knows when you're sitting down and when you're standing up. You know, we had a holiday in South Devon at the end of May, beginning of June, and we were in this pub in Dartmouth. Well, outside the pub, we were sitting outside, and a group of 6 people wanted a table. One of them wasn't wearing a mask. A member of staff shouted across at this particular man and said, "Wear your mask." He did. He wore it for 10 seconds. He walked past 2 tables and then sat down, and then took his mask off.
And then took it off, yeah.
I mean, all of that is just nonsense.
It is. And I mean, the hospitality people will say, well, it's because the government have made this the law, so we've had to do it. And I have some sympathy with that. But come July the 19th, it's no longer the law, so they shouldn't be doing that.
Precisely. Yes, I had a lot of sympathy for, because all the stuff we're doing was obeying the law and not trying to get in trouble. Fine, I understand that. But from the 19th of July, that is it. We do not have to wear face coverings. So pubs should not be insisting on it. In fact, you'd like to think that they want to get as many people inside their premises as possible.
Well, you would like to think so. I mean, all sensible people that I know that run restaurants and bars are doing exactly that. But I don't understand why you wouldn't do it. Because we've been hearing for the best part of the last year that hospitality, although it's been open at times, hasn't been able to make enough money to go into profit because of the social distancing, because of the Perspex glass and all of that. And you would think they'd jump at the chance.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? I mean, I mentioned on your show quite a few months ago a lovely French restaurant that my wife and I visited in Beverly. It was on the 4th of November last year before the lockdown came. That restaurant has never opened.
Right.
I mean, they couldn't open legally really until May anyway. but that restaurant has never opened. Another casualty of all of this. And I just fear that the more restrictions that you put in place, especially as people have changed their habits, people are now used to eating more at home, cooking for themselves, getting a few beers or bottles of wine from the supermarket. They've got used to not going out. The more restrictions that you put in place, the more barriers that are there, then surely that means there's going to be fewer people going into your business. And I do fear more lockdowns, more restrictions by the time we get into the autumn.
Yes, I think that could well be. I mean, the only reason, though, for doing any more lockdowns is for the government to take that view, because I'm hopeful and I'm encouraged to see that in the briefing yesterday, even old Chris Whitty was showing us a graph which showed a very low number of people in hospital, around about 2,000 compared to 34,000 back in January. And despite the fact that the number of infections is up to sort of 30,000 a day, it's not really having any effect on hospital admission. And that is a key thing, it seems to me.
Well, that is the key thing. And I saw a story in my local newspaper last week that said that it was the first death from COVID for about 2 months. There's nobody on ventilation. There's hardly anybody in hospital.
Yes.
Very few people. So the vaccines are doing their job. Now, that was the whole point of it. That was the deal that the government made with the British people months and months ago. They said, get the vaccine, as many people who can get the vaccine as possible. And then once that happens, we will be safe to have freedom, to lead our lives again. And for the government to then say, well, you don't have to wear masks, but you should wear masks. Oh, it's perfectly possible for businesses to say, well, we want proof of whether you've been vaccinated or not, or had a negative lateral flow test. I mean, the government is just breaking its deal with the British people.
Well, that's the thing. And at the same time, they're opening up nightclubs. And I'm kind of going, really? Okay, I get that. And I'm glad they're opening up nightclubs. And I'm sure that many nightclub owners will be very glad as well. But I've seen at least one story today of a nightclub chain who are saying, we're not going to let people come in under any kind of regulations whatsoever. We're not going to ask for vaccine passports. So the whole picture is going to be very mixed, I think.
Well, the last time I went into a nightclub, which I have to admit was quite a long time ago, I seem to remember it was full of young people.
Well, that's right. I mean, I don't tend to frequent nightclubs unless I happen to know the owner of them, in which case I get invited and I go. But basically, yeah, you're right. Most young people are not going to be vaccinated. So how's that going to? I mean, if they had vaccine passports to enter nightclubs, nobody would have one anyway.
Well, they wouldn't. They'd have to go by these lateral flow tests, which have been proved to be unreliable at best, haven't they? But what's
I mean, Wimbledon is a joke. I'm told that people who had to be tested before you go to Wimbledon do this lateral flow test, which basically allows you to not bother taking the test if you don't want to. All you got to do is put down the batch number and whether it was negative or not. So if you have a positive test, you don't even have to tell them. Nobody actually knows if it's positive. So the whole point of it is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is how many people are getting seriously ill, how many people are going onto ventilators in hospital and in intensive care, how many people are dying, and it is very few because the vaccines are working. So why do we need to go through this whole rigmarole? I mean, we've had all the number of people on the streets. I mean, obviously some shocking scenes on the streets as well of violence. We've had all these people mixing together, and I can bet that yes, the number of COVID cases will go up. But the number of people getting seriously ill will not. And this is why we need to open up. I mean, Boris said in a press conference a week ago, if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? Well, I totally agree. But you can't open up and then just say, we're going to put all these restrictions on you as well.
And I've seen quite a few people on social media saying that if they're prevented from entering the premises of one establishment or another, there might be a flurry of lawsuits. I don't know whether you're familiar enough with the law, Andrew, to tell me the answer to this, but is there a legal kind of situation that you could invoke if you are not allowed into a shop, or you're not allowed into a shopping centre, or you're not allowed into a restaurant because you haven't been vaccinated or you refuse to show that you have?
Well, I'm pleased you've asked me the question, because the answer is I don't know, but I think it's something that I need to find out. I think it's something we all need to find out.
Yeah.
Because if it is not the law of the land that you must wear a face covering, I can't see how individual shopping centres, as you mentioned, and other businesses can then start demanding it.
Yeah. I mean, what I can tell you as of now is that, the shopping centre local to me, I used to wear a mask to go in there because I thought it was a courtesy to the people that were in there. That's what they asked for. The last few times I've been going in the last couple of weeks, I haven't bothered. And nobody's been there to tell me to wear one. Nobody's been there to stare at me and give me dirty looks. People, I think, are much more now accepting of the fact that there's going to be a lot of people not wearing a mask.
Well, yes, and they're going to have to be prepared for that from next week, because I certainly won't be wearing one. I mean, I considered after the 21st of June not wearing a face mask when I went into supermarkets, but I'm naturally someone who does obey the law. But after the 19th of July, the law has changed. Therefore, I'm not going to wear one.
And I think many people will be in your boat, and as further the further it goes on, the more that will be the case. Because I'm really not buying the fact that 40% of people in this country still want to keep wearing one, or the 20% of people who apparently want to shut down nightclubs and casinos forever and never reopen them. I'm just thinking,
I mean,
who are these? Who are they?
Who are they? I don't speak to any of them. I mean, I speak to all sorts of people in and out of politics. Good friends, acquaintances. I don't speak to anyone who actually says, "Oh yeah, I want to continue wearing face masks. I want all these restrictions to continue." Well, I say I don't come across anyone. I do come across the odd person, but they're very few and far between.
The only people I see like that are the sort of numpties in the media who bang on trying to sort of virtue signal about how terrible everything is if we all get back into lockdown, while at the same time being spotted on centre court at Wimbledon or at the football.
Yeah, well, yes, but I think you've got to remember that the British government, through behavioural scientists, has done a damn good job of terrifying the British people.
Yeah,
and there are some people who are genuinely terrified, and this is going to be another problem that we're going to have to address. And the government has got a lot to answer for right throughout this pandemic. I mean, we were originally told it was 3 weeks, then it was 6 weeks just to save the NHS. And here we are 16 months later still debating this.
Well, this is it. And I don't think it's any accident that many of those advisors who are in SAGE are actually behavioural scientists, because that's what they've been hired for. They've been hired to try and change our behaviour. And quite frankly, I'm not doing it. I'm not putting up with it anymore. And I'm not doing what they want me to do. And if they try and nudge me in any particular direction, I'm going to run 100 miles in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, they don't get people like Professor Carol Sikora on SAGE, do they?
No.
Who could then say, well, all these lockdowns and restricting access to the NHS is probably going to cause thousands of more deaths through cancer. They don't seem to be interested in people like that. And they're the people they should have been listening to.
Exactly right. Well, Andrew, listen, we'll keep fighting the good fight. We'll keep an eye on them, and we'll make sure that they don't try and get away with anything that we won't let them get away with. I appreciate your time.